Are you one of those people who have tried every single diet under the sun and had really good results for a short period? I certainly am, and sitting here thinking back, I can remember times when I've gone from a large 16, 18 in UK size to a size 10 to 12, and it's taken me about a year to put all of that weight back on. And the thing is, when you do put on the weight back again, you always put on a few additional pounds. Come and say hi, sweetie. I've got 2 twin kittens who are running around this room and they're going to be making noise. So we have to be understanding. So I just wanted to say really that towards the end of 2019, I felt that there was a big likelihood of huge changes happening in 2020. I knew that I was planning on starting my part-time work, and since the 6th of January I've been working 3 days a week. I feel like an absolute queen. I'm loving it. I'm loving the extra time at home to actually pursue whatever it is that I want to pursue. But over the last few months, one of my colleagues who had put on a lot of weight since her mother passed away, a noticeable amount of weight, and had developed additional health issues. She decided that in order to control her weight gain, which didn't seem to be slowing down, and try and affect all of the other health problems, she was going to have a vertical sleeve gastrectomy. She was very brave, didn't really make any fuss. I don't think once I heard her say that she was nervous. She did have it, and she lost weight, and she had more energy. She talked to me about it, and she actually said, "I don't know why everybody doesn't have it." Well, of course, not everybody needs it, but I think I understood what she meant, that it hadn't impacted her life negatively enough to warrant not having the operation. So what she was saying really is that the pros really outweighed the cons. But she also understood, and we talked about, that it's a tool, and she always made sure that I understood that it's a tool. I decided to look up a couple of surgeons, and once I'd selected one who I trusted, it's actually a company called Streamline Surgical. I decided to make a consultation, which I didn't have to pay for at the point of use, although I'm sure it's built into the price should I decide. Who have we got? This is Penny, 12 weeks old and full of beans. He was very knowledgeable. He's actually a professor in this field, so he's very familiar with the research, and he was very much a surgeon. He knew his job, why he was doing it, and all of the other fluffy things, you know, like, I don't know, non-surgical questions, I suppose. Enjoying yourself. He kind of didn't really deal with those specifically. But I don't want a touchy-feely surgeon necessarily. I want somebody who's good at his job, and his job is to perform safe surgery. And he's a specialist in this field. I got booked in for March. Now, my birthday's in March, and a week after my birthday, I was due to have the operation. Well, a few days before I was due to have this operation, I was already on the liver-reducing diet. I was having soups and yogurts 4 times a day. He actually rang me up. I was kind of, cooking the family meal in my kitchen. It must have been about 9 o'clock in the evening, and really he was the last person I expected to call. And he said, "Look, with the COVID situation, I'm actually cancelling all of my surgery lists, and we will get back in touch with you when we reopen them again." Because we didn't know how much of the NHS was going to be taken up with COVID patients. So I thought that that was a good thing. And I waited, and I waited, and I'm glad I waited, and I'm glad that I had that time, because it allowed me to really allow the reality of having this operation to sink into not only my head, my brain, but also my emotions, and accept really that this was going to be something that's happening to my body in a very intimate way, and to think about, is that something that I'm willing to do? So I hadn't heard anything for ages, so I emailed them back and I said, have I actually been forgotten? And she said, no, we can offer you a date, the 25th of September. So that's actually in about 3 weeks or so, I think. And it's been booked in for the 25th of September. I start my liver reducing diet next week, because I have to be on that for 2 weeks before the surgery. And to tell you that I lie awake at night sometimes, or even just drifting in and out, between sleep and wakefulness, and feel sort of frightened, feel worried, concerned, frightened that I'm going to go through this surgical procedure. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to have the gas pain. I'm going to have the pain from the incisions. I'm opening myself to some complications. I understand, and I've read the figures, and they're very simple figures really, of the rate of complication percentage-wise, and even the rate of death, which is huge blooming risk, okay? Even just a tiny bit is too much for me. However, every time I get into my car, every time I cross the road, take the dog out, yeah, you can see where I've been going with all of this. But these are the sort of things I've been grappling with. And the thing that's actually made me think you need to address this really is that I'm at my heaviest now. I'm 51 and I'm at my heaviest. And I know that by the time I'm 55, I'm going to be heavier, more out of shape, more open to lifestyle diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes. It'll be type 2 diabetes like my mother and my grandmother had. And all the other things, sleep apnea, bad circulation in your legs, not being able really to be as mobile, and that impacts your joints, and the weight of your body on your joints shouldn't be underestimated. In the heat, it's blooming unbearable. I mean, I can't, I hate the hot weather. I used to be, when I was younger and a size, normal size, it didn't matter what the weather was doing. I was fine. I didn't feel the heat too much. I didn't feel the cold too much. Whereas now I'm much more sensitive, and I can see that really there are many things in life that I have not been able to enjoy for a long time. And without being overly dramatic, I'm not going to go into all of heavy emotions or anything, but really practical things that I haven't been able to enjoy for a really long time. And as time has gone on, I've been able to enjoy them less and less, and actually have had to stop. And I can't identify a time when weight loss surgery came into my head. It was sort of a dawning awareness that gently came. Then I discovered YouTube videos of people who had done it, and I've really enjoyed them. I love going on to videos in sorry about the noise, it's the kitten, she's under the bed, in the channel, and going from oldest video to newest video to see what they looked like before and what they're actually looking like now. And don't you think that they actually look younger? They look like 10 years younger once they've actually lost the weight. Yeah, so it's not cheap. It's not really much under £10,000. I know that there are a lot of people who pay half of that for the actual surgery itself. and they go to Turkey. There have been some very good results of people doing that. Now, I spoke to a really good friend and colleague. She went abroad to have her surgery. She had a bypass. She actually had to travel there by herself, and she stayed in a hotel for a week after she had the operation, and then she travelled back home by herself. You know, bloody brave, really brave. I didn't want to have to go abroad. It's bad enough that I'm having to go to Harrow, is where I'm going to be having the operation. I don't really want to be travelling further than that. Because of the COVID situation, my husband won't be able to come into the hospital with me. So I am going to, in effect, be there by myself. I'm not really going to have the distraction of conversation or anybody's hand to hold or anyone to look into my eyes and give me the reassurance and the comfort that I need. But I know that it's a quick procedure. It's not something that takes hours on end. I think that it's, about an hour? So it's only a little bit of discomfort, for a few days of discomfort after the surgery and on the day of the surgery, and then the healing and the pain, will reduce. So I've written here in my notebook, I see it as an investment in my future. So although I'm paying almost £10,000 for this procedure, I don't actually think that £10,000 is a lot, because if you think what you spend over a year or 2 years, think about all the food that you buy, all the restaurant meals that you attend, all the clothes that you have to keep buying because you're constantly putting on weight, etc. You see, I think that you can actually save that £10,000. It might take me a couple of years to save it and have it back. But I will have had those results. I will have, and I'm hoping, guys, fingers crossed, this is why I'm doing the operation, to gain more stamina, more energy, more enthusiasm for life, to be lighter on my feet. All of those things will contribute to me moving forward in other areas, I've got a really interesting book. It's called Finally Me, and it's by Alicia Hill Marceau. I came across this author who had the vertical sleeve gastrectomy and talks about the more emotional side of things. I came across that book when I was listening to a podcast called Way in Radio, and it is actually available. I've got an iPhone, so it's available on podcasts. What a great informative podcast. The man who actually is the interviewer has had the weight loss surgery, and it's so interesting to hear it from a male perspective. But we're all dealing with the same thing. We're all dealing with low self-worth and low self-esteem. And look, I'm one of these people that have traditionally seen myself as actually thinner than what I actually am. And I'm always surprised when I see photographs and think, wow, I didn't feel that big, but obviously the photo is not going to lie. So he's talking about how that affects you over time, but from a man's point of view. And and he does touch on things, as does this Alicia lady. They do also touch on intimate relationships, relationship with your spouse, for example. How does it affect it? Is it going to be a positive influence or a negative influence? Are they going to view it as a threat? God, there are so many possibilities. Everybody's life is so diverse and so different. Everyone's situation is so unique to them that those are all things that all of us have to take into account for ourselves. I think that we're both looking forward to it. As I say, I do love to dress up. I haven't been able to do it. He loves it when I wear nice things, etc. He knows about the wig wearing. It's all part of it. Because, you know, we haven't mentioned hair loss yet. Now, you know, I don't have the thickest head of hair, but I'm expecting some hair loss, and I haven't quite decided how I'm going to deal with it. Another thing that that has been sinking in gradually over time. I have been observing myself and observing to see when I eat and what I eat. It's interesting also to take notice of how I'm feeling when I get up to have something to eat and what it is that I crave. I read the most amazing sentence in this book today. Said, people plus food equal relationship. And then the author said that's what she always thought. She always thought that herself plus some food, which was a never-ending quest for whatever food she wanted, equaled having a relationship, i.e. having a relationship with food. But she said that's not right. People plus people equals a relationship. And this is what I mean about understanding things when you're actually mentally ready to understand them. You don't have to do any work. It just sort of the penny drops. It's all these subconscious things that happen underneath. I just suddenly realized, oh my God, since the age of 14, I have developed a relationship with food because my mother was really absent. She lived in another country. I was very miserable where I lived. I did not have a happy childhood. And by the time I came to 14 and all of my hormones kicked in and everything, I had bonded, I had sort of identified subconsciously that food made me feel good. And I could always turn to food when I didn't feel good. And the reasons why I didn't feel good, I didn't really want to think about those. I didn't really want to constantly be dwelling and mulling over the fact that my mother wasn't there, because I knew that in order to survive, I had to keep living my life and live it to the best of my ability. Under those circumstances, even though I was dealing on a daily and nightly basis of this sort of emptiness and the sadness and the sorrow of not having my mother there when I desperately needed her. And there were other things that happened in my growing up years that made it that I needed her even more. So the fact that she was so absent was really devastating and crippling to me emotionally. And I know this in my head. I just had never felt it and understood it and realized it the way that I did this afternoon. And then, you see, I thought about people plus food equals relationship. Well, it doesn't. People plus people equals relationships. Well, that brings its own problems because it's people that have hurt me. It's not food that's hurt me, in my mind. Although in the long term, of course, we all know that it takes so much away from you that it does hurt in the long term. But while growing up in these last years before I became this size, it was people that had hurt me. And if I start the process of melting this weight away from me, I'm going to be starting to face the possibility that I have to be making relationships with people instead of making relationships with food. And that's a risk in my mind. I already don't really like people that much as it is. I mean, you know, the older I get, the more I love my animals. I like my own space. I like my own company. I have select friends who have to be on my wavelength. I'm not one of these gregarious people that calls everyone friend, because that's not how I feel. Really, in my heart, I felt, and all for a long time, that really people hurt you. I hurt people too. And that's the realization I came to, that just the way people are, the way that they're made, the challenges that they have to face every day, they can't avoid but hurt each other. And that's something that I just thought, right, I'm going to just put that to one side, because I don't have the skills to deal with that. Don't know how to fix that. But I can't keep feeling like this, so I'm going to eat that chocolate spread sandwich. Thank you very much. And there have been situations where I've actually had my dinner and had seconds and really been very full, but there was still a hunger in me, a head hunger, where I've gone, and as I'm actually getting whatever it is that I'm putting together, I'm very aware that it's to feed my emotions. Don't they say eat your emotions? That it's to feed or to eat my emotions. And that has happened every evening for a really long time. Decades. You know, count from 14 to 51. You know, and now at 51, I'm going to be in the position of fixing it, because I'm a believer really that I don't want to shuffle off this mortal coil and end my life without having just done a couple of the things that I really think were important and that needed to be fixed. There's just a couple of things that need to be fixed, a couple of things that I need to achieve in my life in order to feel that I've addressed the most important things, and this is one of them. My relationships with people. My ability to handle relationships with people. I'm going to be starting the liver reducing diet next week, and I have noticed that I've started to be down. So I wake up in the morning and I've just got this down, depressed feeling. And I kind of did a bit of soul searching and realised I'm feeling down because I know that next week I'm going to be on soup and yogurt, and really realised how much joy food gives me. I'm a foodie, I'm a cook, I feed people. I when I had the energy, I always used to have people over for dinner, for lunch. We used to love it. You know, have lunch in the garden, have those cosy evening meals inside, by the log burner. We loved it. And now it's going to be like, no, sorry, I'm doing soup and yogurt 4 times a day. No wonder I've been feeling a little bit apprehensive and a little bit depressed. And that is actually going to be even more severe once the operation takes place, because I'm going to be on liquids for a month and then purees, and only then, when I feel ready, starting to introduce more solids. So there's not going to be any going out, indulging in restaurants with Steve or with friends, meeting my daughters and having a big lunch, etc. Yeah, that's something to take into account. Are you prepared to go through that? And it's going to be about a year, you know, let's say 9 months to a year of proper restriction. But everybody's body reacts differently. So you might actually lose your appetite. And bless her, that the woman I spoke to from Streamline Surgical, she had the not the vertical sleeve, but the other one, the gastric bypass, and she said she had it, I don't know, about 4 years ago, and she said she's never regained her appetite. So everybody's body reacts differently. So that's something to take into account. So it's definitely not a small thing to take on for me. If you've had it, do leave a comment. If you're thinking about it, write a comment about what you're worried about or what you're looking forward to, and allow other people to read your comment and maybe answer. I definitely will be looking out for them. I just wanted really to say that this is something very much in the pipeline for this month. I want to document my journey. I will be putting up photographs and documenting with photographs how I go, tackling those things such as loose skin and body dysmorphia and all of those good things.